Hello, class. Today we are going to learn about some methods of factoring. So I want you to start with a KWLS chart and write something you know about factoring and something you want to know about factoring. I'll go ahead and give you a minute to do so now. All right, if you're not done yet, go ahead and pause the video and work on it. We will be using this throughout the lesson, and it'll be turned in tomorrow for homework. So we're going to start with a method called the difference of squares. And again, like I said before, it's just a method of factoring. But it's a very specific method of factoring. It only applies to equations that are set up something like a squared minus b squared. We have some number squared minus another number squared, hence the name difference of squares. So when we factor this, it'll always be some form of a plus b times a minus b. Now the plus and the minus can be in either spot. That doesn't matter. As long as there's an a and a b, the plus minus can go in either spot. Doesn't matter. And we can check my work by FOILing like we learned last week. So I would do my firsts, which is a times a, which is a squared. My outsides, which is a times negative b, so minus ab. Do my insides, which is plus ab. And then we would do my last, which is b times negative b, which would be minus b squared. Now conveniently, my middle terms cancel out to be 0. So I can just cross those off, and then I'm left with a squared minus b squared. So I just proved that a squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b times a minus b. So we know that to be true. So the only time this works is when we have some number squared minus some other number squared. So we're going to look at an example with some real numbers in it. Oops, I don't have that one written down. So we're going to look at x squared minus 1. Now if you're looking at this, you may say, well, this 1 is not being squared. Well, we know that the square root of 1 is equal to 1. So we can rewrite this problem as x squared minus 1 squared. So now it looks like our form, a squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. So now x is going to be my a, and 1 is going to be my b. So I can rewrite x squared minus 1 squared as x plus 1 times x minus 1. And again, because we are doing algebra, I can always check my work. So I'll FOIL it out again to test it. So I do my first, which is x times x, which is x squared. And then I would do my outsides, which is x times negative 1, which is minus x. I would do my insides, which is 1 times x, which is a positive x. And then we get 1 times negative 1, which will be minus 1. And again, we see our middle terms cancel out because the negative x plus x gives me 0. So I can just cross both of those off. And I'm left with my x squared minus 1, which is what I started with. So that means the factor of x squared minus 1 is x plus 1 times x minus 1. So this part here is just to check our work and make sure we were right. So you should always do that in algebra just to be sure that you have the right answer. So go ahead, and I'm going to have you write one thing you have learned about factoring so far. And I'll give you a few seconds to do that. All right, again, if you're not done with that, go ahead and pause the video, finish writing, and then come back. So we are going to look at another example of the difference of squares. And this time we're just going to have a little bit bigger number here. So I want you to think real quick, what is the square root of 4? And the square root of 4 is going to be 2. So I can rewrite this problem as x squared minus 2 squared, because we know 2 squared is 4. Now this is in terms of our a squared minus b squared. So my a is going to be the x again, and my b is going to be the 2. So I would write this as x plus 2 times x minus 2. And again, because I always want to check my work, I'll do FOIL. So I would do my first, x times x, which is x squared, my outsides, which would give me negative 2x, my insides, which gives me a positive 2x, and my lasts, which give me a negative 4. So again, my middle terms are beautiful as a negative 2x plus 2x, so they cancel to be 0. So I can just cross those off, and I'm left with x squared minus 4, which is what we wanted. So we just checked it, we proved that it's true, so we know that the factorization of x squared minus 4 is x plus 2 times x minus 2. Okay, so again, I'm going to have you write one thing you've learned about other factoring as well. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to look at another example. So this one looks a little different. So I want you to think, how can we make this look like our original a squared plus minus b squared, I'm sorry. So if you don't know what to do, think about pulling out the greatest common factor between your two terms. And in this case, that's our 3. There's a 3 in common with both of our terms. So if I pull that out, so it'd be 3 times, if I pull a 3 out of 3x squared, I'm just left with x squared. If I pull out a 3 out of 3, I'm just left with 1 as my placeholder. So now I have 3 times x squared minus 1. And then I'm going to focus on the x squared minus 1 to factor. And the 3 is just going to come along for the ride. So just like before, I want it to be something squared minus something squared. And we've seen this one before. So I can rewrite this as x squared minus 1 squared, just like before. Like I said, the 3 is just coming along for the ride. So like before, we know that this is going to be x plus 1 times x minus 1. And the 3 just keeps coming along for the ride. And since we already proved this one using foiling, I won't prove that one for you. So now we can see that this one, 3x squared minus 3 equals 3 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. Okay. So now I would like you to write one thing you would still like to know about factoring. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. Okay. Again, if you're not done, feel free to pause. Remember, we will be turning this in tomorrow, and we'll be practicing some more problems. So we will see you tomorrow.